Hey, I'm James from Smokin' Dead Barbecue, and today I am going to try my first brisket on the Masterbuilt Autoignite 545. Now, armed off of recent success where I was able to do some live fire ribs and not tell any deterioration in terms of the Autoignite 545 versus what I remember my Gravity Series 1050 able to do last year. My game plan is to try and combine the best of both worlds. Now, the mini hopper on the Autoignite is much smaller than something like what you get with the Gravity Series, where I could cook a brisket, load it up with charcoal, add some wood chunks all the way through, set it, forget it, and walk away. But I already know from that live fire rib test that this is a mighty powerful little smoker for the price point. And since things like brisket only absorb smoke for the first 4 to 5 hours until the bark is set, that's my game plan for today, where I'm gonna start off with a live wood fire, try and get as much of that smoke goodness into our brisket, and then I'm gonna take the easy route and fill the hopper with charcoal and just let it run its course until our brisket is done. So without further ado, let me tell you how we're gonna prep today's brisket, and when I rejoin you, we'll fire up our grill. Well, I bet you didn't expect to see this in a brisket trimming video, and that's because I've already covered so many things in terms of my Brisket 101 videos on how to trim. What I want to focus on is something new today that I haven't shared in any other video, and that's paying attention to the ratio of our flat to our point end. Because if we get beyond a certain ratio, it's not turning out the quality brisket that you're after. So for today's brisket, I took a measurement before we trimmed. I was getting a measurement, I'll put it up on the screen because I don't remember it at the top of my head, but I think we were about 2 inches for the flat end and just over 5 inches for the point end. So this is giving us a ratio of 2.5 from our flat to our point. And this does not give me the best result. And sometimes this will mean our flat is completely done and our point end is not yet done, and we need to separate those. And so if you're ever in a spot where you find, I'm not getting the brisket to be done probe tender in the flat, in the point, this ratio is for you. Where I get the best results is getting in below a 2 ratio, let alone where we ended up today, a 1.7 ratio. This is giving me the ideal flat to point end ratio for nice consistent cooking. And so if you want to remove that much weight, you see in front of me I've got, well, how much weight do I have here in terms of our brisket leftovers? So I did 2 briskets at the exact same time. So this is 6.1 pounds, so about 3 pounds of meat from each brisket. And this is our rendered beef tallow. So you've got about 2.5 pounds. So just about 1.25 pounds of rendered pure beef tallow from each brisket. And so the way to achieve this, I've already done a head-to-head, should you trim, should you not trim your brisket? And I was blown away at just how comparable the results are. So this isn't so much about improving the quality of the brisket in terms of getting those little fine details and scalping the bottom of our brisket, as it is about a simple, repeatable, easy trim method that yields great leftovers as well as even better brisket results when it comes to managing our doneness between our flat as well as our point. So the 2 areas that I targeted for my brisket trim are first, the decal. So this is the really hard fat on the bottom. For me, it's always on the bottom. I like to finish my briskets fat side up. And so starting on the decal, I can get about 1/2 inch to maybe maximum 1 inch of thickness out of the decal. The second area that's never gonna turn out, and it also contributes to a lot of extra height, is something called the mohawk, which you can see I actually have sitting right here. And this left in the brisket cook is not only going to potentially burn if we have a lot of over the top heat like you might get on an offset cooker, but even on any other grill like a Kamado or a charcoal grill, you could still be prone to burning this if it's sitting up closer to the top of your grill surface. This also contributes to the wildly different doneness because we get a lot of extra height and thickness, and there is a ton of fat just sitting right below the surface. And so this is going to help make some amazing smash burgers. So make sure you're subscribed and have notifications turned on. So I'm going to show you exactly what my game plan is to do with all of these brisket leftover trims, as well as with all the pure fat. I saved this and threw it in a grill at about 300 degrees Fahrenheit, added 2 to 3 cups of water until almost all the fat was covered, and just let that smoke for about 4 hours until all the water had evaporated and I could strain it off and have some fresh beef tallow for injecting. The rest of our brisket prep was pretty straightforward. I like to use truff hot sauce as a binder. This was on sale at Costco. This stuff is very expensive, so if you find a less expensive alternative, let me know. But what we're really after here is the umami of the truffle oils, and just using this as a gentle binder before adding our rub. This is my latest and greatest homemade rub. If you're looking for that rub recipe, that's now on my website at smokingdadbarbecue.com. I've always been making small little tweaks in my pursuit of perfection, and that's much easier to update a rub recipe there. So if you go there, you're always getting the latest and greatest, versus when I embed them in videos, years go by and they don't have all the latest little tweaks. Plus, if you sign up for the newsletter while you're there, there's a free temperature guide that is no cost, and it comes to you automatically when joining my newsletter. And speaking of my newsletter, if you had been signed up, you would already know about my backyard barbecue rescue series that I'm piloting this year. Super excited, where I'm going out to members who have sent in a note saying, I'm struggling with brisket, I'm struggling with chicken, and I'm going to do a bit of one-on-one coaching with a couple surprise details along the way. So make sure you catch those episodes later this spring when they air. That's it though for our brisket trim. After I had everything trimmed up, put on some truff hot sauce as a binder, added our homemade rub, it was into the refrigerator for an overnight dry brine, meaning all I had to do this morning to get our brisket ready is inject some of the melted tallow back into the flat. This makes a big difference on these Costco briskets. So for me, in the middle of winter where I am, the only grade that is available to me is Select or Choice. There are no prime grade briskets at my Costco location until at least spring. So in order to get a better result, this is where rendering some of the fat that we just trimmed from our brisket can give us, as you saw here, a couple pounds of tallow, and this is more than enough to use a meat injector and put some of that fat back into the flat portion, which will help give us amazing results when this is all said and done. Now that we've got our brisket trimmed and ready to go and you're all caught up on the details, let's fire up our pit. So as the name Autoignite might imply, there's not a lot involved with firing up our Masterbuilt. So all I had to do is remove the leftover ash from last night's tallow rendering smoke by removing the pan, dumping the ash, place a fire starter in the starter cube, and then use the automatic fire up button in order to get our grill up to temperature. I'm gonna aim using the wood splits. I'll show you a bit of a chart here from later on comparing what I saw in the meter chart versus what I saw in the Autoignite app, and they're both showing me fairly comparable things, which if you run your grill like an offset, you get a little bit of that offset experience where fresh wood splits combust, shoot the temperatures up a little bit, it regulates itself, the fan takes over, extends that for about 20 minutes or so at pretty stable temps before we run out of BTU and need to add more wood. So that's really the game plan for the first 4 to 5 hours. I'm just going to keep adding 2 wood splits by preheating them on top of the cast iron mini hopper in order to heat soak them so they combust nice and clean. We don't get any bad smoke. And then when that's all done and we have our bark set, I'm going to move to the foil boat. I want to make sure on this grill, I noticed on the ribs it was fine, but we're closer to the heat underneath, and I don't want to potentially expose a brisket for the entire 10 11 hours or so, whatever it may take for our brisket to be done, and potentially overdo the bottom. So to protect that, I'm going to move our brisket into a foil boat and then take the easy route, fill our hopper up with some fresh Fogo, let that ignite while I'm doing the boat so that we don't get any of that off-putting flavor from charcoal just starting to ignite. And that applies, by the way, any grill that you're using. If you run out of charcoal, need to add some more charcoal, remove your food until the charcoal is lit and burning cleanly, and you won't get any of that off-putting taste. So whether you're doing that on a kettle, a Kamado, or something like our Masterbuilt, the foil boat is the perfect time to add that extra charcoal, as by the time we come back, it'll be burning nice and cleanly. For the remainder of our cook, since daylight is short, winter months, we're still a few weeks and months away from springtime, my game plan is to do a long hot hold in the oven, and I have been playing with my finishing temperatures here as well as the holding temperature. So Jerby shared in a recent video that my friend Al from Eat More Vegans did. They like to hold their briskets at 140 degrees, and so I put a meter probe back into the brisket after I wrapped it up in foil and just tried playing with the temperatures of what I need to run the oven at in order to keep the brisket at a food safe 140 degrees. And that turned out to be around 153 degrees Fahrenheit. If I went a little bit hotter than that, the brisket temperature was starting to climb. And if I tried to get away with the 140 degree Fahrenheit temperature range, ambient air temperature, that wasn't enough to keep the brisket itself at 140 degrees. Well, enough talk. I am all ready to taste some brisket. Let's move over to the kitchen and see how we did. All right, moment of truth. Let's slice into it, see how we did. Oh, that is one pretty looking brisket. Let's get some of our point end and some flat. Fly away, little bird. Flaps nicely. Just gently pull, comes apart. I think we've got ourselves a good looking brisket. Let's dive in for our taste test. Start with our flat. I don't know if you can see that, but it's got really nice squishy rendered fat in the fat cap. That's looking, got that yellow squishy look to it, almost comes across like candy. One of the reasons, if you haven't tried fat cap up, is for that texture and taste alone. Try a piece of our point end. Wow. I'm gonna get this inside before it freezes up because I definitely have some thoughts. Whew, it's cold outside. Got that brisket inside to prevent it from freezing up. But I'm so curious. What I didn't mention in the background of this video is I'm doing two videos today. I'm doing a brisket on the Goldens Cast Iron Kamado as well as the brisket that we just tasted on the Masterbuilt Autoignite. But since I had these inside and they look so different, let me show you on screen here. The smoke ring difference was actually much better on the Goldens Cast Iron Kamado versus the almost non-existent smoke ring on the Masterbuilt Autoignite. But to sort of prove that the flavor is not necessarily what you see in terms of the smoke ring, I'm gonna ask Sarah, my wife, to come out and join us for a blind taste test. She's not gonna know which is which. I'll tell you on the screen between what's on my left, your right, and my right, your left, which brisket is which, and get her honest reaction in terms of what tastes better. I phoned a friend. Okay, so I promised to tell you which is what, right?
No, I have no clue.
Okay, so we have brisket A, brisket B. I will put up on the screen what's on my left, your right, and my right, your left, so you know which is which. But Sarah, why don't you go ahead and grab a sample from each one. Which one are you starting with?
Okay, I'll start the one on my left.
Okay, grab a piece. Close so you can hear the mic.
Well, that's delicious. Flavor's really, really yummy. The bark's pretty good. Okay, so I'll compare it to this one?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So right off the bat, I like the depth of flavor better on the one on my right.
What do you like about it?
The flavor, okay, so normally I don't like a ton of smoke, like everyone knows this. But
Vein of my existence.
in this situation, it really adds to the flavor. Like, it's not too much, it's a really nice depth of flavor. Yeah, it's like it's adding an extra element to it. And the bark I liked on this one as well, on the right. It just was nice. It had a good texture and the flavor was yummy. No, they're both delicious, don't get me wrong. It's brisket and you do a good job. See, I can compliment you, not laugh at you all the time. Anyhow, however, I would say between the two, I like the one on the right better.
So now that you, I think, are kind of down the same path, a little bit obvious. So one of these I cooked on a Kamado style grill. The other one I cooked on an Autoignite Masterbuilt, but I used real wood splits.
Okay.
So if you had to guess now, burning a live fire versus charcoal with some wood for smoke, which one do you think's which?
It would be this one, I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Well, thanks for proving I'm not crazy. Let me rejoin you in a second once I get this back inside so it doesn't freeze up for some final thoughts. That difference was pretty remarkable. And again, keep in mind, we are comparing a $500 smoker versus a $3,500 smoker. Now, I'm making no claims here in terms of longevity. I am sure one of these two I could pass down to my children and the children's children and their children's children, and that would last a lifetime. Whereas, you know, maybe this is just my bias coming through on electronics. I don't own any original piece of technology from my grandparents that I still use today. But if we're not so worried about our grandchildren's children using our smokers and you want to enjoy a great brisket today, I am blown away with the quality of the smoke results that I'm getting off of this Masterbuilt Autoignite. Is it comparable to, you know, what I get off my offset? No, this is still not offset quality, but it is amazing quality and perhaps the closest thing that you can get this side of an offset for a fraction of the work. Just like his big brother a year ago when I put the Masterbuilt Gravity Series through a couple wood-fired tests with ribs and then brisket, and I even put that head-to-head against sort of the more affordable offsets like my Oklahoma Joe's at $400 or $500 US, and I got very comparable results. And that is what you're getting here, which is struggling a little bit for fire management, not moving as much air volume as you get on a large firebox with a big smokestack that can encourage more draw, and that penetrative smoke is just that much more next level. But fire management here is tossing in a couple of splits every 20 minutes for the first 4 or 5 hours until our bark was set, dumping in a load of charcoal, putting our brisket in a boat, and just letting it ride along on cruise control. The Autoignite took care of everything else, and we got a result like this. This is amazing. So good, in fact. Let me know if in the comments if you actually think it'd be worthwhile. I'd be willing to do it if enough people want to do it. Go buy a similar priced pellet grill at one of the big box stores and put this side by side. Because in my mind, from memory, in terms of what I can recall tasting from an affordable pellet grill versus this will absolutely blow them away in terms of the quality of smoke that you're able to get out of this price point. That's it for today, though. Let me know down in the comments. I'm James from Smoking Head Barbecue signing off. And remember, don't be afraid to fire it up.